Well, welcome everybody to the long overdue podcast that's been talked about for probably almost a year now. And I'm calling it the long overdue podcast because I still do not have a name for it. This was totally something that I've been procrastinating and pushing off for a long time. And as of last week, Jay, the producer here, reached out to me and was like, when are we going to do this? Like, let's get on this. And I realized that the longer I tried to think about it and plan it, it wasn't going to happen. So I just said yes. He texted me last night and said, are we on for tomorrow? I still blindly said, yeah, why not? Let's do this. So here I am making the podcast with legitimately no plan of how this is going to go. But I'm here and that's all that matters. And I think that will probably end up being a big point of today. And I'll probably get into it very shortly. But for those of you that do know me, which I'm going to assume that most of you that are here are either from TikTok, maybe we work together in coaching, maybe we're friends, we're in the same community. But for those of you that don't know me, my name's Kate. I'm a content creator, I'm a life coach, I'm a relationship coach. I am somebody that is very well-versed in many different areas of life. And though my career has been very niche recently, I'm finding that I miss having all of the parts of me involved in my career and my creativity and my brand. So if you would have asked me a year ago when I was planning on making this podcast what it would have been about, it probably would have been more around my coaching and relationships and things of that nature. But I think timing is everything and everything happens for a reason. And I'm very glad that I'm recording it now versus then, because I think it's going to be very different now versus what it would have been when I originally wanted to do it. So what to expect from me? I don't really know how far to get into this because I don't really want to limit myself. I don't want to say to just expect my coaching and my relationship content. If you might hear something from me next week about mental health, and then the following week about diet and lifestyle, and then the following week about hormones, and then the next week about trauma. So you can expect a little bit of everything from me. Now, with that being said, I want to come back to how I started this of I have no plan right now, right? Like I came here, I showed up, and I said that that's all that matters is that I'm here. And I think that that's very important. It's very, very important. And the way that I was kind of going about this for so long was it needs to be perfect, right? Like I needed my episodes to be perfect. I needed it to be super like aligned with who I was at the time and what my brand was at the time. And every episode needed to have kind of bullet points to it. And there's nothing wrong if you're somebody that plans like that, right? But I found that it wasn't so much of I need things to be organized versus I need things to be perfect. This is something that if you don't know already, doesn't exist, right? It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect. The project's never going to be perfect. The timing's never going to be perfect ever. And this is the first time that I think I really went about something bigger in my life of I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to see what happens. I'm just going to believe in myself. I'm going to believe in the dream, believe in the feeling, and I'm just going to do it, right? And I have high hopes. I think it's going to go well, but going back to the perfectionism is it's just that I find that gets in the way of so much. And like I said, this is something I've been wanting to do for so long, but probably well over a year now, honestly, but it was constantly the idea of I'll do it when ... I'll do it when I quit my job. I'll do it when I have this many followers. I'll do it when I have this many subscribers, this many likes, or I'll do it when I have this many clients. And the marker kind of just keeps moving. Like it never, maybe that time does come that you have that many subscribers or you have that many followers for the podcast. And then there's something else that, well, I'll do it when this happens. I'll do it when that happens. And it just starts to never happen. And I think that this is relevant as far as my podcast goes, but we do this a lot in life in general, where it's like, I'll start that business when I save this much money, or I'll take this leap when I lose that much weight, or when I'm this clothing size, or when I'm making this much money. And we just keep pushing life off and pushing it off and pushing it off. And it never happens, right? And then we look back, which is kind of what happened with me with this podcast, is I looked back and I was like, I invested all this money in this equipment over a year ago, and I can't even count how many excuses I had in that year of I'll do it when ... And then after being on the guys podcast last week, on the Genuity podcast, I had so much fun and I got such great feedback. And though I was so excited to come on and do my own thing, there was a part of me that was a little sad because I was just like, why did I keep waiting? Like, what was I waiting for? Why did I keep pushing this off? Like, why did I keep coming up with excuses as to like why it was never the right time? And I think it definitely comes down to like why I did that or why anybody does that. I think it comes down to like definitely believing in yourself and having security and faith in what you're doing and that you're providing value and that you can do the thing that you're planning on doing, right? And I think when the thing gets closer, we start to then find these new excuses of, well, maybe not now, or maybe when this happens or when that happens. And again, the marker keeps moving and you end up missing out on these things and on your life that you have planned for yourself, right? And I just think that there's never going to be the right time for any of these things. There's never not even the right time. There's never the perfect time. There's never a time where everything aligns and it's like now is the time to strike. Now is the time to start the thing. Now is the time to leave my job, or now is the time to make that big jump. It never happens that way. And if it has happened for you, you're very lucky. I think that's extremely rare, but you have to just go off of the feeling. And I've had this conversation before with a few people, and I think if you follow me, you've seen me post this concept, and it's that when these ideas and like these feelings show up in your mind, it's kind of none of your business how they got there, right? Like I had this idea of I want to have this podcast. Last year I had this idea that I want to quit my job. I want to start coaching. I had this life dream in my head, right? And it's just kind of like you start contemplating, well, how is that going to happen? Like how am I going to do that? How am I going to make that jump? How am I going to start that thing, right? And you get in your own way of just how, when, like I said, going back, it's really none of your business how that thing got into your head. Your only responsibility is to act on that thing. God put that idea in your head. He put that vision in your head because it's a possibility for you. And it's one of the avenues that you are meant to explore in your life, that you're meant to dive into, that you're meant to be a part of. There's a reason why in my 29 years on earth, I've never had the vision drop into my head of like, I want to join the NFL, or I want to, I think I want to play hockey, or I think I want to become this, or like things that are just completely irrelevant to who I am. There's a reason, because those things are not meant for me. They're not in alignment with me. They're not in my realm, right? So when we get these ideas, I think so often we're kind of like, well, that sounds kind of crazy. Like I would love to do X, Y, Z, but like that's a little out there. That's a little much. That's a little, we started thinking of all the things it would require of us in order for that thing to become true. But again, stop thinking about like how and why it got there. And your only responsibility is to act out on this thing and to make it come true and to quit your job, take the risk, start the podcast, start the page, start the business. Like that is your responsibility here, right? Not figuring out how. And going back, like I think something I also want to share personally is that something I did a year ago was when I was still working in the car business, and I was working, 5-6 days a week, 8 to 6 every single day, I had like my dream life in my head that I wanted to be able to wake up and get outside and have a slow morning and read emails and see a couple clients a day. And I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I just knew this kind of life that I wanted to have. It was very light and slow and fulfilling. And I journaled out, this is the kind of life that I want to have. And this is what I want it to look like. And I remember writing in there, I want to have a podcast. I saw podcasts in my head. I saw photo shoots and video shoots and brand deals and just like all these things popping up. And I was concerned with how, for sure, like looking at what my life looked like at the time. I'm like, how is any of this going to happen, right? But I just kept kind of living in alignment with who I needed to be in order to get there. And I look back on a day like today, and even a day like last week of being on the guys podcast last week, that I was like so nervous about it. I was so nervous coming into today. Again, this thing that I kept pushing off. And I look back and I'm like, like, this is literally, I prayed for this. Like I journaled this. This is the life that I wanted for myself, that on a random Tuesday afternoon, I woke up this morning, had my emails, I saw a couple clients, I hung out with my family, I hung out with myself. I just had a slow afternoon, and now I'm here recording a podcast, and I'll go see another client after this. And it's like, this day was kind of stressful, and it was kind of overwhelming of like, I have to do this and I'm nervous. What am I going to talk about? What am I going to do? But I look back and I'm like, this is everything I asked for, and this is everything I prayed for. And circling back to the thing I was talking about before of like, if I were to try to piece together how this came about, of how the things that were in alignment, the things that worked out, the things that didn't work out in order for this to happen, it would have probably scared the shit out of me at looking back, if you would have told me everything that would happen and would not happen in order to get to literally today. Like, it would have scared me. It wouldn't have made sense. I wouldn't have been able to wrap my head around it. I would have gotten so wrapped up in what you were telling me versus just believing that it will work out one way or another, and the pieces don't matter. So if you are contemplating doing that thing and it sounds maybe a little far-fetched for you, or it sounds a little crazy and you don't really know how it's going to work out. I know I want to be this thing. I know I want to be this person. I know I want to start this business, or I want to start that YouTube page or whatever. Stop thinking about how. All you need to do is contribute to who you need to be in order for this to happen. And you need to walk in alignment with that. And I think this is also like such a common thing that comes up really with so many people now, like with clients, with myself, with personal friends, things of that nature, is that like, I hear people all the time talk about, like, I'm just talking to you right now about like podcasts and business, right? But some people are like, I really want to have this thing or do this thing, or I really want to live this kind of life as far as like have this kind of routine, or I really want to be very physically fit, or I want to be very healthy. And maybe at the time they're not. So they're talking from a place not really in alignment with the things that they want to be. And again, they get wrapped up in the how of how is that even possible? How am I going to get that thing or be that person with who I am now? And what I would recommend in those moments is that, kind of like I said before, is you need to walk in alignment with that. It really is like a big nature of like fake it till you make it. Like you kind of have to fake and pretend to be that person that you want to be. And eventually you will be. Like I tell people all the time that your brain will catch up. Like you have to act in alignment with those things. So I might sit here and tell you, like, you're like, I don't know. I wish I was more confident. Right. And I would tell you to go and be confident, not just be confident, but embody the feeling of confidence. And you might, your head might spin and be like, well, how am I going to do that if I'm not a confident person right now? I'm not confident. So how can I just go out and be confident, right? And just embody that feeling. And it's like, well, what would somebody that's confident do, right? Like maybe they would carry themselves a certain way. Maybe they would speak a certain way. Maybe they would associate with certain people. They would do certain things. And those are the things that you have to do. And that's what I mean when I say that, like, your brain will catch up later. When you start living in confidence, eventually what will happen in your mind is it's like, oh, wait a second. Like, we're not insecure anymore. We're confident. And you can't argue that anymore, because look at the things that I'm doing. Look at the ways that I'm showing up. Look at the ways that I'm showing up for myself and for others, and the way I'm carrying myself and the way I'm speaking to myself. So you really do have to fake it till you make it. And another thing that I know that I've brought up before is that, like, you need in order for certain self-limiting beliefs to be true, you need certain realities to be true. And I know I spoke on this before with like procrastination, is that a lot of times at the root of procrastination is the self-limiting belief of I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to be good enough to do that thing. I don't believe in myself. And as long as you keep procrastinating, that belief will remain true. It will stay true. It has the physical life form evidence to remain true, right? But if I wake up like a day like today and say, you know what, I'm gonna go and record the podcast. I don't know what I'm gonna talk about. I'm super nervous. I don't know what I'm gonna get out of it. I could have texted Jay and just canceled and been like, you know what, like I can't make it today. I'm super busy or whatever it is. And then the rest of the day, what would have gone on in my brain is that I'm procrastinating again. I canceled. Now I don't feel good about myself. I'm never going to do it. Like, I just don't understand. Why can't I be confident enough? Why can't I be this enough? And my actions would align with those beliefs that I'm having. But now, as I'm here recording this podcast, right? No matter how it goes, no matter whether we keep this episode or not, or whether I like it or not, I don't get to go home tonight and say that I'm not good enough, or I'm procrastinating, or I'm not confident enough. I don't get to say that today. That doesn't get to be true. It can't be true because of the actions that I took today towards that thing. So that's kind of what I mean when I say that eventually your brain will catch up with your physical actions, but you need to take action first. You do need to fake it till you make it. It is uncomfortable. You have to do the things that you know, that version of you, whether it's that business version of you, that healed version of you, that happier, more confident version of you. You need to do the things that they would be doing. And like I said, the rest will catch up later, because when you start doing those things, you don't get to say these negative things about yourself anymore. You might sit here and say to me, well, Kate, I'm so insecure. I'm so unhappy all the time. I'm so scared all the time. I'm so all of these things, right? But if you start waking up every day and you start prioritizing yourself, and you start working out every day and prioritizing your time and prioritizing your mental well-being, and you start taking better care of yourself, and you start doing the things that maybe make you happy, you stop listening to sad music, and you stop listening to, sad content, and you stop dragging your feet, and you start listening to happier stuff and more upbeat stuff, and you start showing up better. You don't get to say at the end of the day, I'm so insecure and I'm so unhappy, because eventually, again, your actions will change the narrative that's happening in your brain, right? Like, these two things will eventually align. But the uncomfortable phase that I'm talking about is there's a pretty significant moment in time where those things don't align. And you have to force it. You have to force it. You have to do the things that are scary, uncomfortable, maybe not certain, maybe not promising. You don't know what you're going to get out of it. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. There's a ton of uncertainty. Those are the things that you have to do. And that is how, really, like I said, I didn't really know where today was going to go. But that was just a theme that was very prominent in my brain today when I was getting ready and thinking about coming here, of like, kind of getting nervous. And again, like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know how this is going to go. But when those parts start to show up, those scared parts and those insecure parts, my job at this point is to not give them a job. It's to kind of like demote them and say like, okay, well, I'm not acting in alignment with that. I'm not acting in alignment with, I'm scared. I don't know what to talk about. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know if it's going to go well. Like that's my responsibility now, is to completely separate my actions from those beliefs, right? Because at the end of the day, like, I don't really believe so much in, not that I don't believe in it, I just don't think it's so practical to tell people to change their thoughts, right? Like, I think if changing your thoughts was that easy, to be honest, I wouldn't have a job. I think a lot of therapists wouldn't have a job. I think like it's not so simple to just change the narratives and change your thoughts and change the way that you're speaking to yourself, right? Like we can change, I'll go back on that. We can change the ways that we speak to ourselves, but we can't always control the thoughts that we have. And I do believe that no matter how healed we become or how much we heal our relationship with ourselves, we'll always have those little demons kind of show back up. That's like, you can't do it. You're not good enough, or it's not going to go well, or whatever it is to try to keep you down and pull you back. But as far as not being able to change the thoughts go, you can change, again, your actions and choose that I'm not acting in alignment with these negative thoughts and these negative self-limiting beliefs that are trying to hold me back from the person that I want to be and the things that I want to do. So that's just seemingly a short bit. Maybe that was about 15 minutes on why, like how I even got here in this chair today, and how I think it was just a very important message to share with people, that it's one that I think is very cliche, but it's one that I hold on to consistently. I think anytime things show up in my life or thoughts show up in my life of like, I don't know, like, I don't like, how is this going to go? Or how's that going to go? And, you know, the kind of like this narrative that tries to tell me who I am, of like, to keep me small and keep me down. And I just think it's something, again, that is just so consistent in my life of I'm constantly hit with this crossroads of stay small, you know, and go back with those things and go back with those self-limiting beliefs and be the person who doesn't act and doesn't do and doesn't take charge and just kind of fall a victim to those thoughts. Or those thoughts can be there, right? They can be there, but it's taking those thoughts out of the driver's seat and putting them back in the passenger seat, right? And it's just like, you don't get to drive the car. I'm not going to kick you out. You don't have to leave. I understand that those are parts of me that want to be heard and want to be felt, but they don't get to steer the ship anymore. And also, it's not about like throwing them overboard and kicking them out, right? Because those are still parts of me that, like I said, they need compassion and they need love and they need me, but it's not letting them steer the ship. So that is just something that, like I said, it shows up in business for me. It shows up in relationships for me. It shows up in my personal relationship with myself. It shows up in finances. It shows up in my health. Constantly this, again, crossroad of like, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be long term? But sometimes it's literally just as simple as, who do I want to be today? Like I said, I woke up, honestly wasn't having the best day. I was feeling kind of off. I was feeling kind of shitty. I was just feeling like a little meh. And I could have went with that. Like I said, I could have texted Jay. I could have canceled. I could have just said like, not today, maybe another day. And I could have followed through with that mood, right? I could have committed to those thoughts today of just like, yeah, you're right. You win. That's who I am today. And I guess that's who I'm going to be. But all the way to driving here, I just kept telling myself of, that's not who I'm choosing to be today. That's not who I'm choosing to be. Again, those thoughts can come with me to the podcast. They're like sitting in the chair next to me right now of like, do you even know what you're talking about? Like, is this even good? Do you even sound good? Like, or can you even do this? Right? Like, I didn't kick them out on the side of the road. They're here. But I took charge and decided that, nope, that I know who I'm going to be today. And it's not you guys. You guys can come, but I'm choosing to be the person who keeps her promises to herself and shows up for herself and does the thing that she says that she's going to do. And again, like keeps her promises to herself. I think that's something that is so underestimated. Keeping our promises to ourselves, of even the small ones where it's like, I'll wake up and, all right, I'll go for a walk tomorrow. I'll go to the gym tomorrow. And then we're like, oh, I don't feel like it. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to do that. I don't have the time to do that. But that adds up. The constant, maybe later. No, I said I was going to do that, but I don't have the time to do it. I want to go do something else, or I don't want to do that today. And the constant breaking of the promises is forfeiting that concept that I just talked about of choosing who you want to be and choosing who you're going to be. Because the more you break those promises to yourself and you forfeit that power, you become a very, very insecure person, because you start to mistrust the most important person, which is yourself, right? You start to think that it's one thing if somebody else's word doesn't mean a lot to you, but it's another animal when your word doesn't mean a lot to you. The world becomes a fairly scary place when you can't even trust yourself, when you can't even trust your own word, and you can't even make yourself a promise knowing that you're going to keep it, right? Like, there's nothing worse than when somebody promises us something and says, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be this person for you. I'm going to do that thing for you. And then imagine they're just like, no, I actually decided I actually don't want to do that for you anymore. I'm not going to do that thing anymore. And maybe they do it last minute, right? They cancel on you last minute, or they just stop showing up for you last minute. It's really painful when someone does that to us, but yet we constantly do it to ourselves. We constantly say to ourselves, I'm going to do that thing. I'm going to start that business. I'm going to be that person. I'm going to take that chance. And then we don't. And then we wonder why we're so insecure, why we're so behind. We wonder why that marker keeps moving, right? Of I'll do it when. But it definitely all comes back to the promises that we have with ourselves, and the broken promises, the promises of all the things we're going to do and all the things we're going to be. And we never hold up our end of the bargain. So me being here right now and being on this mic and being on this camera and recording this episode is me sticking to the promise that I made to myself a year ago, and even the promise that I made to myself last night and this morning of I'm doing it, I'm doing the thing, because at the end of the day, even if I decide with Jay to like, don't post this episode, I actually don't think I like it, I actually don't really like the direction it went, I still can feel so proud of myself and so happy that I made the decision. I took the step forward. I started the thing. I'm doing the thing. I'm heading in the right direction. I'm in alignment with the thing. So, and that's all because of a promise that I made to myself. And those are the most, like I said, in life, the most important ones to keep is, of course, keep your promises that you make to other people as well. Our word is very important, and it's the only thing that we have that we can give other people. But most importantly is the promises that you make to yourself, because trust me, you will feel it. You will feel it in your life when you stop keeping the promises that you make to yourself. Like I said before, you'll become very insecure. You'll feel very groundless. You'll feel very uncertain. You'll feel very scared, very unsure of yourself. So that's a major place to start with anybody, honestly, is start keeping the promises that you make to yourself. And it's kind of just where I wanted to go today with this episode. This is again me showing up to keep a promise to myself, and a promise that I've made to a lot of people watching this as well, is that I would start this episode and I would start this podcast and I would get this out there, and I want to be somebody of my word to myself and to others. So that's just a little bit about, again, today and being here. And I'm looking very forward to all of the topics that will come up, all the things that we'll talk about. I do have many different concepts that I want to talk about, many different very specific topics that I want to talk about. I just didn't want to jump right into things. I wanted to kind of just introduce a little bit, again, tell you why I'm here, how I got here, my procrastination of even coming here. And then I figured in the next episode, I can get into more specific questions that I get on TikTok, on Instagram, in my sessions with clients, more like niche discussions. So I know I've posted it on Instagram before. I'm not sure I posted it on TikTok, but I'll say it on here and you guys can comment on it, whatever platform this ends up being on. But anything that you want to hear about, anything that specific conversations you want to have, specific questions you have, I don't care if it's down to the specific personal situation that you're in at the moment. We can talk about anything. I know that in the future, I also want to have, whether they're mini episodes or full episodes, I don't know, but definitely Q&A episodes. I get a lot of questions through Instagram, get a ton through TikTok in the comments, where I do want to dedicate episodes to just kind of like spitfire with these questions of just like, here's the question, here's the answer, here's a solution, and maybe go through like 5 of them in depth in an episode, maybe bi-weekly, once a month, something like that. So yeah, I guess we'll see where this goes. Like I said, I don't have a specific plan. My only plan and my only goal was to get started and to do it. And I did, and I'm glad that I did. And I'm glad that I'm here right now in front of this camera, in front of this mic, and in front of whoever's watching this. And if you made it this far, I know I said it before in the last podcast, but I really, really do appreciate you being here and being along my journey. I know it's been a long one, and I know it's a lifelong one, but there's a lot of you here that have been supporting me for a long time, like for years, honestly, every endeavor that I've taken. And you've just always been there. And if, again, like you're here to the end of this episode, I really appreciate you. And it's not even a numbers game for me, like even having 4 people that feel that way so strongly that I can connect with and help and align with and have their support. It's just like, it's more than anything that I could ever ask for. So of course you hope this goes as high as it possibly can, but that in itself will always be enough for me. So again, if you listened this far, I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I'm excited to see what's to come. Like I said, there will be a plethora of things. I don't want to put myself in a box right now of what that will or will not be, because I'm sure really anything is fair game. And yeah, So I'll see you guys, I guess, next week for a more niche specific episode. But again, thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.